Welcome. My name is Eileen, and I'm a holistic coach offering personal and transpersonal coaching for DJs and producers in electronic music. I am happy to invite you in and to get comfortable for the next hour. This is a brave space, a place where it is safe to get vulnerable and talk openly about the pitfalls of being active in electronic music. Anxiety, depression, addiction, the inability to find balance in music and in life, the pressures of staying relevant, and the many ways this competitive environment can affect mental health. Through a series of interviews with artists, artist managers, coaches, yoga teachers, meditation gurus, and more, I will help uncover a variety of ways to support and enhance mental health of artists in the electronic scene. I welcome you to join me on this holistic exploration of artist well-being. In this space, diversity and equality are respected. So listen with an open heart. Let your unconscious mind soak it all in. For the next hour, you don't have to do anything. Just get comfortable, take a deep breath in, and mind the music.
Hey there, and welcome back to Mind the Music. I am so happy that you decided to tune in. It means a lot to me because I feel supported by you on this journey of well-being awareness in electronic music. Now, before we dive into this episode, real quick, I want to share with you a free guided meditation I created. I meditate every day, and I think you should too. It doesn't have to be complicated, and you don't need to sit on your meditation pillow an hour a day to get the most out of meditating. It just takes consistent practice through a daily commitment and just 10 minutes of your time. My guided meditation is designed to help you to stay grounded and focused throughout your day and with any activity, whether it's work, making music, or handling life balancing issues. You can do it anytime, anywhere. You can even do it in a toilet stall. Grab your free copy at bit.ly/TUM-free meditation. That's bit.ly/TUM free meditation. I hope you'll enjoy it, and now it's time to dive into this episode of Mind the Music. Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Mind the Music. This is a really special episode because I'm actually bringing back an interview that I have previously recorded for my Electronic Music Wellness Summit. This summit
took place from June 23rd until June 26th and was geared towards people in electronic music who were really eager to get inspired on how to make a purpose-driven and lucrative activity inside of the electronic music scene whilst taking care of themselves, hence the name Electronic Music Wellness Summit. It was the first summit of its kind, and I brought together 23 speakers from all over the world, from all walks of life, and with very, very diverse backgrounds. Now, one of those speakers is Jade Johnson, aka Vamp, and we talked about how to work with NeuroDiversity in electronic music. This is a really candid and open conversation about being on the spectrum and still being able to be active in electronic music. I think it's a really important conversation. It is a conversation that got a lot of attention and a lot of appreciation inside of the summit, inside of my virtual summit. And so I thought it was really important to bring this conversation back. So what you will hear now is not just the interview that I did with Jade for my summit, but also music that she has curated specifically for this episode. Now, before I let you go, before I let you listen to this episode and to this really beautiful interview, I just want you to remember this. If anything inside of this conversation resonates with you, then please do not hesitate to reach out. You can come talk to me. You can reach me at captain@theunicornmothership.com. Don't be afraid to reach out if you have any questions, and I will be happy to support you in any way I can. I do hope you will enjoy the interview, and for more questions or more information on what I do in my holistic coaching business, you can head on over to theunicornmothership.com. All right. Hello, everybody. I am super excited to introduce the next speaker and also enjoy the conversation, because I'm pretty sure I will. So I'm happy to introduce Jade Johnson, aka Vamp, and we will be talking about, well, actually exploring her experiences with neurodiversity in electronic music, so that we can offer people with similar experiences more awareness around their own experiences, so that they can have a better quality of life and really see how they too can easily build a life around their passion for electronic music. So let's dive right in. Hello, Jade, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. So just to get started, just tell us a little bit more about who you are, where you're from, and what you currently do in music.
Yeah, thanks. So my name is Jade Johnson. I go by Vamp Acid as a solo live, like kind of acid dance producer and musician. I play all analog. I don't use a computer. I've been working with this project for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And I moved from Los Angeles to Berlin about 4 years ago. So yeah, currently I'm working on this project, and I'm also freelancing in user experience design and project management. So that's a whole nother thing, but I feel that it's related because it's, designing experience for people.
Yeah, for sure. And how do you like to be addressed? What are your favorite pronouns? I forgot to ask you that.
Okay. I usually just go by she, her. I don't prefer to be called a boy or get confused to be one, actually. But I do relate as kind of ladyish and tomboyish, if that makes sense. Like androgynous, kind of.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so
before we really dive into your experiences with neurodiversity, what is the best way to address a person who is on the spectrum like you?
I think, just if they are autistic, you can say this person is autistic, they have ASD, or, they're on the spectrum versus a spectrum disorder.
Yeah.
Because I think that, or neurodiverse, I'm also okay with as it stands now. Maybe that'll be phased out later, but the whole disorder aspect insinuates that this is kind of a negative thing. But I think there's just so much more to be understood, and it's the people are marginalized, until something becomes more the norm, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to include that question, because I feel a lot of people are not aware of that, and or don't know how to address people in such situations. So it's good to have some clarity on that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you already shared a little bit what you currently do in electronic music. Can you go back a little bit and tell us how you got into electronic music?
Yeah, my brother is 11 years older, and he's been my biggest musical influence. So he introduced me to synth pop and industrial and punk even. But, a lot of different genres, which I expanded upon, that basically saved my life when I was going through some, dysfunction in my home life as a kid. So, yeah, I was DJing for a while after going to the clubs. And, I was in the punk scene for a long time. And that kind of shifted as people started getting into black metal and then more electronic stuff, which I think just all tied into each other as more like subculture, and people coming together for similar reasons with a family background or feeling like they don't fit in. And so I was invited out to an underground festival called Bogo Tracks out in Colombia. And I met all of these techno gabber artists from Europe and South America. And that was the turning point for me, where I knew that, oh yeah, this is so punk. It's so the thinking is so out there and creative. And I ended up moving to LA after missing my train going back to the Bay Area. My mom convinced me to move. Yeah, she really wanted me to go back to school. At the time, I was trying to study costume design. And I started taking some electronic music courses at the City College after I met this guy who ended up being my boyfriend, Basic, who was throwing these raves with dark matter sound system, Droid and Friendly Integration, these big minimal techno labels now. Mm-hmm. And I just fell in love with it. And so I started doing it, and then it kind of just progressed from there as I got a mentor from Nitzareb. I was shadowing Kevin Keys from Skinny Puppy. These artists that had a huge impact on me already.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that was the beginnings.
And how old were you then at that point?
I was in my early 20s when I moved to LA.
Yeah. So you had already been in that scene for a while by then.
Yeah, totally. I got in the punk scene when I was 11 years old, actually. So.
Yeah, that's already a veteran almost by your early 20s, right? Yeah. And so a little bit about your work besides electronic music. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What is that all about?
Yeah, sure. So user experience design, it's more on, it says design, but it's not visual design necessarily, unless you go more into visual or user interface design. But you're designing the architecture and the strategy of a digital product or service for users. I like to just say customers or people, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of UX research involved, user testing. You're collaborating with developers and data scientists, trying to understand how to improve services through user behavior, or to create like an optimal experience that is not an afterthought, but something that can improve the quality of someone's life in an ideal world.
Yeah.
So being highly analytical, which I believe is due to being on the spectrum partially, and seeing the finite details, or what you would call edge cases, I think, and having a high level of empathy, which sometimes people on the spectrum are, they get this reputation like, oh, they're just, stoic and monotone and have no empathy, but really I have a lot. It's just, I express it differently maybe. So yeah, it's a really interesting profession, and I've also been splitting my time as a project manager and lead UX UI designer, where I've been working in companies like NASA and Otis College of Art and Design as a product design teacher. And I made the decision through the influence or encouragement of a couple of friends to go into freelancing recently.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive as well. Like both of those kind of tracks in your life, music and then design. It's really impressive.
Thank you.
So it was only until recently that you discovered that you were on the spectrum. Can you tell me a little bit about what the turning point was and how you got diagnosed?
Yeah, sure. So I'd been struggling with workaholism for a long time, until, I had to kind of take some time for myself. And I realized I was having some difficulties like in with social issues or situations in communication in particular. So I was missing social cues, like with flirting, where a friend would say, that person was flirting with you. And this happened a lot of times, like throughout my life, actually. Or that person wants to be friends with you. They're trying to impress you, where, I think that something else is going on, or trusting someone too early. And I kind of kept hitting the same dead end in situations, but I could be, I've been very charismatic and likable also throughout my life. But then I get to this point where there's just this like, computational error in this system of communication. And so, with autism, it's largely about cognitive processing and communication issues, right? Yeah. So with neurotypical people, you get them in the same room and they can really understand each other. With neurodiverse people, you get them in the same room and they can understand each other, and then you mix those up and it's like, right?
Yeah.
So I played in Prague last August, and I was assaulted, where I was hypervigilant for like 6 months. And this was after I started getting and managing panic attacks. So I remembered, oh wait, my mom was trying to have me diagnosed as a child for like 4 years, but she said she knew something was off. She had 2 other kids and a lot of siblings since I was 3 months old. So the doctors told her, after all of this extensive testing at Stanford, and that I was too smart to be autistic, that I tested at like a genius level at the time, if those tests are even relevant anymore. I started doing more research about it with the difficulties I was having with these memories, talking to my mom about it. And she's like, yeah, well, we just kind of, never really disclosed the full picture to you, but I have her to thank to give me more information. So I was like, watching these YouTube videos that people have been diagnosed in their 30s, and like Laura Dezan of the Not Neurotypical podcast. And it's psychologist Sam V. San that's based in Amsterdam, and started researching deeper. And And I really had this like holy Toledo, like light bulb moment where I was identifying, and it was the same feeling, and like I'm getting chills right now talking about it. But when I got clean, 7.5 years ago, and started turning my life around. So I was tracking all the symptoms, which I'm still doing. I have like 30 pages. And I have been like implementing tools that I'm researching. And I took all of these tests that are recommended on this diagnosis path before you go in for formal diagnosis, the AQ and the RADS-R. So I got a referral from my doctor, and the waiting list is like 1.5 years. And it's insane. And that's in, everyone from around the country. In Germany, like I'm based in Berlin, they go to the specialist clinic for diagnostics. If you try to do this in the States, it'll take probably the same time unless you pay a ton of money. But insurance usually doesn't even cover this. So here it does, luckily. Yay, Germany. But anywho, yeah, so a lot of people based on this, they'll self-diagnose and they'll live their life like that, or they maybe it was suggested by their doctor they were on the spectrum, like a good friend of mine who's an engineer, a typical, stereotypical, field that they'll go into. Yeah. But so the process is expensive, it's exhaustive, and you're left sometimes with minimal coping resources. But I'm doing this because it feels like deep down that this is what's going on. And I know myself, and I've talked to friends who are like, yeah, that makes sense. So I feel like it's the right thing to do. And I also think that coming forward, like at the bare minimum, might help somebody else who's facing this issue, which is highly stigmatized. And some people get it and they're accepting, and other people start treating you differently with like this hidden disability. But I believe that we're disabled by society for not trying to meet us halfway a lot of the time, unless they just treat us like, we're disabled. But I try to seek to understand where other people are coming from instead of, because I'm, one of the few, right? I have to advocate for my own well-being, and I can't expect other people to do that for me, which I learned in recovery, right? I also think sometimes like this self-help culture can express to people, or their interpretation is there's something wrong with them, and they're always trying to fix themselves. So I think trying to stay in the day of the human experience and focusing on like what you've accomplished, what you're grateful for, that's what I try to do to keep myself in the day. So I think like finding the concoction that works for someone who's like suspects they're on the spectrum. And I know that, and I think that's a really good thing. And having this self-awareness, I'm starting to connect the dots of what I've experienced my entire life of not fitting in a certain way, like being misunderstood, doing things that might be misinterpreted by people or misinterpreting. And I'm kind of gaining closure around the skeletons in the closet that like still haunt my dreams. So I feel like this is helping me to move into a happier chapter of my life, and have more compassion and connection to other people.
Yeah. So you already kind of hinted at it, how this has impacted your life, but could you maybe dive a little deeper into, if that feels comfortable for you, into more of a specific example as to how your experience with NeuroDiversity has impacted your life or your work in electronic music?
At this stage, it's helping me to accept myself more and move past the fear that I can't express myself because it's wrong, and I'll be given like a big fat red F in life, And also growing up with this abusive household, and trying to escape. I feel like I'm living life on life's terms now, and I'm not having to escape as much. And it's such a unique, like a cool feeling. Like it feels really good. And also, like what do I have to lose at this point, I already like had to take an ink blot test to try and get this one job, and a personality like cognitive test, which as a person on the spectrum, I process information differently. I'm really good with it, but yeah, it was awkward. And I told them like, okay, yeah, I'm on the spectrum. And they were like, oh. You know, I've even been told, oh, you should work in the medical industry then by a recruiter. So it's just really kind of, yeah, it's dehumanizing. Even though I have experience working in the medical industry with the health embassy in Berlin, and it's a field I'm very interested in, particularly mental health, for obvious reasons, probably obvious to me. I decided to start freelancing with my UX profession so I could start focusing more on electronic music and the production, and, you know, get more professional with it and go on tour whenever I get signed to a label for the album I'm working on. But it's a dream I never knew I was capable of, you know, and I'm trying to turn around the negative experiences and see the lesson in it and move forward with that. And it feels really good to be at this stage in my life, you know?
Yeah. So I remember in our pre-conversation, you mentioned something about how for women, it's usually later in life, like in their 30s, that they start to become more aware of possibly being on the spectrum, because women are more capable of masking it, if I'm reframing that correctly. You mentioned something of that during our pre-conversation we had before this. Can you speak into that a little bit more, what you have discovered about this?
Yeah, so this is just based on my personal experience. I know everyone's going to have a different one, and a lot of the research that I've obtained on it, and personal interviews with people on the spectrum with late diagnosis, and it seems to be the commonality of masking. Socially speaking, okay, let's just say female identifying people have traditionally, you know, had less freedoms than male identifying people with the later right to vote, work outside of the household. We're expected to raise children and put on this face of like makeup and, you know, try to put the best foot forward. And it's seen as a weakness if you're not doing that, and, you know, if you're doing something different. So I think that people, I think women, even if I don't want to admit that, have been conditioned to think that they need to be more feminine, and there's something wrong with them if they're not. And this is still heavily integrated into society. I thought Berlin would be totally different, but Berlin was where I had my total realization of this, right? And it's a mixed bag, you know? So with the masking, it's being able to fit in and not feel like you're being ostracized. For me, I've been told most of my life, like, oh, why do you act like a guy? Like, you're so masculine, da-da-da-da-da. And it's because, like, I'm more, I don't know, I'm just more, like, straightforward in social context. Yeah. Where it comes off as rude because I'm blunt and I don't mask as much, but I'm able to, like a chameleon. Like in a business meeting, I've been observing my whole life other people and their mannerisms and things like that. So it was actually after I had, you know, I was working myself to the bone that I started kind of regressing in my social skills to where the mask kind of fell off, I guess you could say.
Probably too tired to keeping it up.
Totally.
Yeah. So can you, wait, let me just go to the next question. Yeah, so just to round up this conversation, you've already hinted at a couple of really, like, you know, practical ways to handle this and to, you know, self-diagnose and to raise awareness. But can you give your top 2 or 3 tips to people with similar experience to yours, being on the spectrum, as to how they can build a life around their passion, in this case specifically electronic music, but can also be in general? What are your top tips?
Thank you. That's a super great question. Yeah, I would say number one, make a plan and try to stick to it as like the best of your ability. Like for instance, I believe that preparation makes all the difference in the world. And with people on the spectrum, it's very normal to stim, which is repetitive movements that are self-soothing. And so like I fly under the radar by tapping my foot to music. And I notice I do it when I'm not listening to music, not in an impatient way, but I'm always keeping a beat, which maybe sounds weird, but it works for me. So when I'm prepared, I feel less stressed and I'm less prone to having some type of panic attack or a meltdown. So it can mean, with preparation, it can mean a good week, or without, it could mean that I'm shutting down for a few days or weeks and I can only do the bare minimum and I don't want to be around people. So I think that I struggle with sensory overload issues. Like I'll go into the grocery store and I'll see everything and all the details. I make a list of everything I'm going to buy, usually the same things. So go figure, structure and repetition, right? Yeah. But I like it. And I make the list in an order where I can visualize everything that I go in so I can see, so I don't have to go back. And I go into a larger grocery store now. So having the space for myself and the personal space from other people helps a lot. So yeah, like I might go from 0 to 60 with noises or the sensation of a watch on my wrist. I can maybe wear it for a couple hours, or even makeup on my face. Sometimes I just start really feeling it. I have to take it off. So like I hear noises at the same level when I go outside. People chatting across the street, the birds chirping, the cars driving by. Everybody did. And I see things in pictures, you know? So it helps with the visualization techniques. And I carry noise canceling headphones and earplugs. So sometimes if I feel stressed or overwhelmed, like in the grocery store, I'll put in my earplugs and then I feel good. I feel normal. And maybe it sounds strange, but dealing with these things and taking it seriously and bringing your little kit along of self-care and to cancel out the sensory overload helps a lot. So with that, I also recommend downloading like Insight Timer and doing little meditations between tasks or in the morning, or maybe trying out your meditation, which I noticed you have, which I got to try out. Yeah.
Cool.
And so I also bring like chewing gum, and I just got this like chewy stem kind of bracelet from Chewy Gem, which was recommended by Anna Moomin, who was also diagnosed later in life. And yeah, I understand why dogs like to chew on toys, but I always thought, I thought it was silly when I first heard, but I'm like, oh, this is so good. But we're animals, right? That have just been civilized or something. So yeah, with this plan also, executive dysfunction is a huge thing for some autistics. And so I know that there's ways around it though. So I write down my plans for the day the night before. And if I have too many tasks that I need to do, things I need to do, I just try to spread them out. Because if I have like a lot of things on my list, I get really overwhelmed, because that's what the sensory overload thing, like I see the patterns in the wall and like everything. And yeah, I also carry prescription sunglasses also, which helps to cancel out some of the noise. So having this little kit of the bare minimum things, and also time for decompression. So after I play a show, I have to come home and chill out by myself and do something I enjoy and get a lot of sleep. Before I go to a show I'm going to play, I try to pack up the night before, because I notice if I go in and I'm all stressed out, I go into this like hypervigilant mode, and it can send me into a meltdown when I get home. which is part of the masking. I'm not going to have the meltdown at the show when I have to play.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I've had panic attacks in public. I don't know if people have seen it, but now I have it under control, thank goodness. Second one that's extremely important to success in the music industry, I think, is having a friend to be accountable to, like a sounding board buddy that's going to encourage, especially if you feel like very down because you were just rejected by a label or didn't get a gig, or the gigs were all canceled, like with this COVID global pandemic happening right now. But yeah, like I used to really be bound by my own fear and like justify that I was so independent until I moved here and I had to ask for a lot of help. So being accountable to someone that's supportive, where you can say, hey, what do you think of this? And, you know, like that's helped me so much. I had a friend who volunteered himself to check in with me. And yeah, we're only friends. I just wanted to put that out there. It's like totally comfortable and normal. His name's Will, and he he's doing like production and mixing and mastering. He worked at DBS for like 4 years, that big music school. And he goes by Pink Bits, and he's releasing a movie called Pink Bits, the movie. And I'm in the film. So that's something else we're working on. And it's about rave culture and mental health, which is perfect timing. So he takes all my press photos too and just mixed my upcoming track, Erotic Discipline, that'll be released on the Acid compilation, Do You Even Acid, by the Canadian label Obscure Music on the 22nd of June. Mm-hmm. So accountability, yes. And my last tip, go easy on yourself.
Yeah.
It's so, that goes with this like self-care stuff, right? But I think the easiest way, like the quickest road to unhappiness and discouragement is comparing yourself to other people. Like what you think they have versus what you don't have. Comparing yourself to musicians that have been in the industry for like 30 years and are like boom, boom, big room techno artists, like world tours and fans. And so that, like, I really try not to do that and keep myself in check. So reality check, I'm not that person and that's okay. And do I want to be, I'm me. So a lot of self-acceptance and trying to be in the moment helps with that. And rewarding myself with something nice I like to do after I've been working on a song for like 5 hours, taking little breaks. Picking myself back up again is part of going easy on myself, being my own friend, like knowing that all it takes is one yes amidst all of those rejections. And I try to understand, versus like what I want, what I think is good for me. Because seriously, when one door closes, it's like the wrong door or the wrong door for the time, another one open. Like I got on this label through the COVID thing to help artists in this situation before I'd pitched to any labels. And, like just remembering tomorrow's a new day, it's okay. And like, you can always try again or restart your day at any time. Like that's what I do. This is also with like 7.5 years of recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for offering your perspective and also for having, the vulnerable conversation, for being so courageous. I really appreciate you for sharing your experiences and definitely your practical insights. And I hope, and I do think that will be the case, that people will be able to put those insights into action right away and will be able to start to feel better really soon. So thank you so much for doing this, Jade. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
The women here are oh so cute. The freaks are on the floor now.